Welcome to yet another amazing episode of Pure Minds, Pure Energy, Enlightenment Sessions with Nate and PMC. I'm your host, Nate Zeleznick, founder of the Integrated Ascension Method and one of the only American master trainers of the ancient Indonesian royal system of breathwork, meditation, healing, energy building, and extrasensory art of Merpati Putih. Today, I am honored to introduce an extraordinary spiritual guide, an energetic alchemist, and a dear friend, Daniel Raphael. As the creator of dream porting, Daniel has transformed lives around the world by helping people turn insecurities into superpowers. His revolutionary system has guided over 50,000 students on a journey of personal and spiritual awakening. Daniel's path has been anything but ordinary, though. He spent 15 years traveling the globe, living with indigenous tribes, studying with masters, and decoding ancient scripts. His profound experiences have helped him overcome debilitating anxiety, depression, and autistic symptoms, empowering him to become a trusted advisor to Fortune 500 leaders and a sought-after transformational teacher. This February, Daniel is hosting the life-changing Ascension Retreat in Mexico, where I'm honored to join him as an instructor. In today's conversation, we're going to be exploring the magic of dream porting, the power of energetic transformation, and what's possible when we trust the journey of life. So get ready to be inspired by the one and only Daniel Raphael. Daniel, brother, I am so honored to have you here.
It's an honor to be here and to share with all of you watching around the world. Thank you.
You know, Daniel, your story, the story of transformation from you that I know deeply from talking with you, from battling anxiety and depression to you becoming a global spiritual teacher is so inspiring. Let's let everybody else know, what first set you out on this spiritual journey?
Well, I was very sick, nearly dead. Couldn't even make eye contact with people. Literally was living in hell. Just, and every corner was just terrified by life. And then I had a dream around age 20. And I woke up from this dream and it was like the voice of God said, if you go to this place at this time, your life will change forever. And it was a music festival and there was tens of thousands of people. So I couldn't even go to a grocery store without being scared of people. So it was the most intense thing I ever did, was going to this huge festival, and I was just so insecure and so traumatized, but I decided to go. And then it was very intense, but at some point at the end, there was a man with a sign that said free energy healing. And I didn't know what energy healing even was, or that it was possible. And I decided to try it. And in 5 minutes, it just completely woke me up. And it was like I was living in a completely different world. And that's what started my spiritual journey, to travel around the world and train with masters, because I wanted to know, what is this and how can I share this with myself and more people?
That's incredible. And you know, a lot of people have spiritual experiences like that, but they don't then turn that into contribution. You know, they don't. They'll keep it as a spiritual experience, or they'll be so freaked out by it that they don't actually speak to anybody else about it, and they kind of carry it to the grave. So kudos to you for taking that and saying, wow, I can do this. I could do something for humanity at large. You really have. You know, you described dream porting as a unique system that you channeled from this ancient wisdom. So how did your global travels and study, how did it really help you shape this practice?
Well, I spent a lot of time alone, actually. You know, the teachers were there, like seasoning, spending a little time with them, but I never actually had one teacher where I just trained with deeply. And a lot of it was, I just feel like I needed to go within and connect with myself first. And sometimes with plant medicine, sometimes in meditation. And then I got to work with thousands and thousands of people for the last 15 years. And so through practicing and just experimenting and channeling, there's several systems that came through in dream porting that include just alchemizing, reprogramming any block, oftentimes in just a few minutes. So it's kind of like a mixed magic arts where there's different tools and intuition to be able to alchemize that. And there's also a technique where you can write down all the pieces of your life on paper and move it, or put salt on it, and it's basically a holograph of your life. And we've had, the first time we tried this technique, a $2 million business deal came through 20 minutes later that was stuck for years, just by burning one of the pieces of paper that was blocking that energy. And then the last one is the timeline shifting, where you learn to actually shift to a different timeline, because we're actually existing in so many different potentials in the quantum field, and you can actually download the frequency of any reality and shift to it. And if you know how to stabilize it in your field, in your body, then all of a sudden life treats you completely differently. And so from my pain and struggles, and I started experimenting with this, and because I felt so disabled and handicapped in so many ways, that was actually what worked for me, to actually just use meditation and energy to be able to start healing and manifesting miracles and masters and abundance and things that the public couldn't even have access to help me heal. And that's what inspired me to share it with the world, because everyone can use this now.
That's beautiful. And, I can attest, as a raving fan of Daniel's work, having experienced it myself, that, I've been on this journey myself for a long time. I have about 37,000 hours of personal meditation, martial arts training, teaching, and experience in the realms of, well, everything that has to do with spirituality that I could possibly find. And I found that your approach was extremely immediate. For me and the other people that we were with in California, for me, I started transporting out of my body almost immediately with your words, and the way that you direct people is really an amazing approach. And I've had a lot of different people teach me, and I've had this experience over and over many times of going within. But I have to say, dreamporting is something special. It really is. And, you went and lived with these indigenous tribes, and you learn from these powerful spiritual masters, which I think is really beautiful, because a lot of people, we live in the modern era where people go to a weekend retreat and all of a sudden they're a guru. And the people who are watching right now for the Pyramid Spiritual Society movement, PSSM Global, they are all very devout meditators, many of them for decades, using pyramid scalar energy and their meditation to meditate daily and be with their breath, which is the main cornerstone of the PSSM movement. Now, when you were working with these indigenous masters, and there are all kinds of different tools that they use as well, what is a big lesson from those experiences that really changed your life? I mean, I've had my own, but what's one that changed your life forever?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, one that's coming to mind right now is, one of these shamans told me, you can do anything you want if you mean it 100%. And it's such a simple thing to say, but when I put it into practice in ceremony, the first time I realized, wow, I wasn't meaning anything. I was taking myself like a joke. And a lot of us have lost the ability to make decisions or be decisive. And that's actually the foundation for manifestation, for healing, for all of these things, because we need to just fully decide. And what happens is we get caught up in the mind and say, well, how? I don't have enough money, or how is this going to happen? And we forget how the universe works. And the how is up to the universe. The how is up to God. And it's up to us to just choose something, right? It's like, I choose to be healthy, right? I get this invention, I choose to make it successful. I'm just deciding, right? And so I started playing with that energy more. And sometimes I needed to be in really scary situations where, like, oh, I'm about to die, or, oh, I'm really, really angry because I got abused. But then all of a sudden I just was like, boom, I'm done with this. And then magic happened. And then, right? So sometimes those hardest experiences are what we need. And then we realize, okay, those are training wheels. We don't need to suffer in order to succeed. And those are just lessons. But those were the catalysts that helped me realize to reconnect with that muscle of deciding, which goes hand in hand with trusting, right? It's like the masculine and feminine part of faith, which when you combine, allow those miracles to unfold.
Yeah. And you often talk about transforming these insecurities into superpowers. That's something that is, there are a lot of people that will build upon what's already there. But, with dreamporting, what I found, and I've heard you talk about this as well, and I've talked to other people who have experienced your magic, that to be able to take a weakness and turn it into a strength is something really special. It's one thing to take something that's, kind of a strength and make it bigger, magnify what that is, but it's another thing to totally flip-flop what somebody thought was a debilitating situation and turn that into the end of their hero's journey, if there is an end. But, a lot of people feel stuck and disconnected. So with dream porting, Daniel, how does that help individuals shift? Like what is the process of helping them shift to a more empowered version of themselves?
Well, first it's the taking the right perspective, the divine perspective, because we're here, our memory gets wiped when we come to earth. We're these eternal spirits, and whatever the hardest things are, the challenges in our life become like the irritation in the pearl, become the pearl. That's what catalyzes the whole process, right? For me, a big one was emotions. Like I could barely make eye contact or connect with people at all. And now I help, some of the founders of the top companies, relationship experts, connect deeper with themselves. And it was from having that deep challenge where I just went deeper and deeper into, let's work on it, let's connect with it, right? And moving through it. And now we're an alchemical laboratory in our hearts, in our biofield, that now has the perfect frequencies and instructions for other people to unlock those blocks. And so I see it kind of like the Rubik's Cube. We can learn how to unlock it very fast once we really put in that practice, just like you have. And so whatever you're challenged with right now, it's trusting first about really being patient. And what I learned is also not forcing it, right? Because we can't do it out of force. To really make a big decision, it comes from a place of peace. And a lot of that is tied to our nervous system, and trusting that if you're in a challenge right now, it's trusting that God is teaching you. And when we shift the perspective from I'm a victim or being upset at someone else or angry at yourself, which disconnects you from your soul, to, okay, what do I get to learn right now? What am I not looking at? Please help me. Thank you for this lesson, right? That can be really hard to do, but it's a muscle we can work and develop, just like going to the gym. And that humility, that gratitude, that curiosity is what attracts the answer, right? Where we have a magnetic pull, which then can attract the solution, right? In whatever form that is.
Absolutely right. And I think that, a lot of people go through their spiritual journey, or they just go through their life in general, whether they are on that spiritual path or they're just trying to, quote unquote, get through it. And they say to themselves, why did this happen? They look at what's negative. And I happen to be the eldest child of a person that, I'll put it this way. My mother, I love her dearly, but everything's wrong in her eyes. She's not looking for what's right or what's great. And so if we take that moment to truly be present and be grateful and have reverence for our life, the fact that we get another day on this planet. But a lot of people don't really do that. When what you talked about, I want to revisit this to the Rubik's Cube, because the Rubik's Cube, okay, I'm going to be fully transparent with everybody. I never solved a Rubik's Cube. What I did, and this is back in the day when they had little stickers on them instead of actually colored plastic, is I would actually take all the stickers off and rearrange them. So I solved the Rubik's Cube. Oh, what can I say? I cheated. But when it comes down to Rubik's Cube now, you see these people solve them in 4 seconds, but it's a formula. It's a formula. No matter what the configuration of a Rubik's Cube is, there's a mathematical formula and movement to get that all the way to a solve. And the reason I mentioned that is because you've helped facilitate so many life-changing transformations in minutes. Like a Rubik's Cube, like you mentioned, that you can sit there and walk around in the desert in circles for the rest of your life. But all it takes sometimes is one Sherpa, one guide with the right formula that works across the board, because it's ubiquitous. As a human being, we're having these certain experiences, right? We've got some certain things that are immutable. We exist. We're having experience. It's ongoing. You can't shut it off. Everything changes except for those first 4 things. But what you've unlocked, Daniel, is like a Rubik's Cube for people to step into their highest self. So please, I'd love it. Could you share just like one of the most profound healing experiences that you've witnessed through your work?
Yeah, I would love to. You know what's coming to mind, and I'm really shifted from even healing to awakening, really, because once you awaken, the healing is already done, because the need to heal was part of the awakening journey to get you there. And I was just starting out. This was maybe like 12 years ago, and I was at a festival, and I met this woman, and I said, "Do you want to soul gaze for a moment?" And it wasn't romantic. It was just like, let's just do an exercise for a minute. And I looked at her, and she was in a lot of pain. She was overweight. She obviously had a lot of insecurities. And after a few seconds, I looked at her, I realized, oh, this is actually God, the face of God, and she forgot who she is. And as soon as I saw her as perfect and divine, she had a complete awakening, and she started shaking and crying. And she said, that was the most profound experience of my life. Now, I didn't send her energy. I didn't do anything, right? And so this is also a code, because if you're a healer, or you want to be a healer, a psychic, an oracle, a light worker, then it's the first step is perspective. And this is the first thing I teach in my certification, if you want to do what I can do. And it's so easy. It's just shifting the perspective. And this is proven in quantum physics. By changing the way you see something, the whole reality changes. So you want to see whoever you're facilitating a session for as already perfect and divine. Because think about it, maybe that's the first time they've ever experienced that. Their parents, their society are all projecting, this is wrong with you, or you're not this enough, right? And that showed me how simple it is, actually. And it's not complicated. And so just from the perspective of how you see someone can create an awakening. And then from that foundation, there's some really easy and powerful techniques that can locate and transform any limiting block in your system.
That is such an important thing, because a lot of us, Tony Robbins, he's a fan of the word scotoma, which is basically something that's right in front of your face that you just don't see. And I think everybody out there has had that experience with, where are my car keys? Where did I leave that envelope? Where's my pen? And it's right there. And of course, it's always the last place you look. But a lot of the time, these things are like, my glasses, where are my glasses? They're on your face, they're on your head, and we don't see them. And I, as someone that in my life, many times I've made things way too complicated, way more complicated than they had to be. And if you've ever had this experience of grabbing onto a jar and trying so hard to turn it, and then you're like, I give up, and you barely touch it and it opens. Sometimes, but it does take a very special mind to be able to determine, okay, and intuitively know, this is the easy path. This is pressing the easy button. And that's something that you really excel at, Daniel. I can make things very complicated sometimes. Making them the easier way has not, up until this point, been my strongest suit. So I have much respect for anybody that can say, well, yeah, simple, right? Like that. I thrive on people like you, because you help make my life like, there's a lot of does that can happen in my life, because I'm like, oh, wow, I was trying to do calculus and it was really just 1 + 3 = 4. Oh, there's the answer. And dream porting really touches especially on manifesting new realities for people and helping them manifest new realities. So how do you really consciously, how do you guide people to create their ideal lives? What is that like for you on your side?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first step is getting them to a place where they're connected with their soul, because the best way to create your ideal life is to channel it by connecting with your soul and listening, right? Because it's guiding you. And what happens is we all have this beautiful soul, but we also have these layers of fear and doubt and these things that filter the messages from our soul coming into us. And then it gets translated where we might actually, our soul is guiding us maybe to not connect with someone, but because of the scarcity or fear, it's like, oh, maybe this is all I can get. And once we clear enough of those imprints, it doesn't have to be perfect, we get that GPS back where we're just moving through life and we can listen to the signals of our body, and we're healthy and we're happy, and miracles just are in every corner. And some of us have felt that temporarily, and it's about really stabilizing that. that. And that's what Dreamporting is all about. It's about allowing you to really gamify and simplify the connection with your soul so that you can be the creator again instead of the victim, to be the architect and really allow yourself to fully express your gifts, which allows so much value, that so much value comes back in all the time, and you're just being yourself and miracles are happening and unfolding.
I love that so much. And, for years and years, I work with a lot of neuroscientists, and I work in the realm of the brain a lot. I love it. It's just fascinating to me. And when it comes to learning, when you talked about making it fun, when you gamify and you simplify stuff, this is an interesting article that I read. It was saying that the average human adult takes around 200 repetitions to learn a new skill, unless it's done in a state of play, in which case then it can be as few as 10 to 20. So when it comes down to efficiency, getting things done with more is less, right? Doing things with that gamified, the simple, fun approach that you bring, that helps people make these breakthroughs even faster. And, when you mentioned listening and paying attention and really listening to ourselves, trust is important. Trust is absolutely important. But so many people, like you said, they have this fear. So for you, what role does trust play in the personal and the spiritual transformation? And, not just what role does it play, but more importantly, how can people strengthen that trust in themselves and in their lives?
I love this question. Well, you can see if you're, a car, trust is the road that is built upon you so that you're driving and you can go faster, slower, and it's just the road just takes you where you want to go. And I think almost all people, maybe 99% of people have trouble trusting, and that's normal because this world has been so crazy, right? It's destroyed our regulation. And so it all goes back to the nervous system. And, we used to live in communities, and there's still some tribes who really go deep into the jungle, where children and babies, they don't cry because the parents, the tribe, they know before the child does if it's hungry or thirsty or needs something, and they're connected telepathically. And this is not a superpower. This is actually just a basic foundation of how we're meant to interact if we're regulated. But what happens is, with all the crazy stuff on TV and the toxins and the state of the world, most families have lost their ability to stay regulated and filter out all that negative energy for the child. And the child picks it up very early and never learns how to fully regulate and feel safe. And then it loses the ability to fully trust. And then the mind becomes overactive. And we have all these neurological and psychological conditions that are just adaptations to a dysregulated nervous system. But the good news is that we can actually regulate our nervous system. Often in a few minutes, there's miracles that can happen. And I'm working with a nervous system master, Gabriel, actually, who's coming to our retreat and co-facilitating with both of us. And this is why I love just combining different master teachers from around the world, because they each have a part. And I've seen it in 2-3 minutes, just by co-regulating with another nervous system, people have huge unwindings and awakenings, because we're meant to actually regulate with another nervous system to learn how to do it and live in community. And so that's a very important pillar for me now, is reconnecting community and safety, because that's really the foundation for all the things we want: relationships, manifestations, blah, blah, blah. We require that foundation where our nervous system can actually receive more abundance, receive more intimacy. And we do all this therapy in the mind and we understand it, but our nervous system often is still pushing away, because when we were 3, 5, whatever, it wasn't fully safe, right? And so one of our parents maybe judged us or didn't allow a part of us to exist or express. And so we had to push away to feel safer, to stop feeling so much emotion. And now we realize, okay, it's time for us to let go of that and relax. And so that's the way we can really trust again, is by finding and relaxing the armor that we've built to protect ourselves. Like the cocoon, it saved us back then, but now we have wings. We're a butterfly. We're ready to let go and fly. And that's